What's going on, YouTubers? This is Buddy coming at you. Another quick video on a 65-gallon mixed reef. Still playing with the camera settings a little bit, trying to get the settings a little bit better to really try to get my video quality better. So we're getting there. We're still playing with it a little bit. I think this is a little bit better than the last video. So in this video here, I want to talk about some changes I'm going to be making to this reef here. I don't know if I talked about this yet or not, but I've been considering on switching my lighting back to T5s. I've had success with the Radion LED light fixtures, and I'm overall pretty happy with them. But I feel like it needs a little something else, so I don't know if I'm going to keep the Radions and just add T5s, or if I'm just going to get rid of the LEDs altogether and go with a 6-bulb T5 fixture. If I keep the Radions, I'm either going to go with just a 2-bulb T5 fixture, 2 fixtures that are 1 bulb apiece, or I'm going to add in 4 bulbs and keep the Radions, 2 fixtures with 2 bulbs apiece. So I have a lot to think about on that, but I will definitely be adding T5s to this fixture, or to this aquarium, that is for sure. That is a guarantee. I will be adding T5s to this aquarium, and I'll take you guys through that when I add that, and I will tell you the bulb selection that I go with and all that good stuff. So the second thing I'm going to be doing is adding that 20-gallon long to this aquarium, and I am going to add that make that kind of a showcase refugium, and I will add some soft corals in there as well because they do absorb nutrients out of the water. Not to the extent as, say macroalgae or something, or clerpa or something along those lines, but I want it to be a fancy refugium, so I will add decorative macroalgae. I will not add any clerpa, but definitely decorative macroalgae, mangrove trees, and I will add some soft corals, probably some leathers in there, pulsating zinnias, probably some green star polyps, GSP, because I have so much of it, and probably a finger leather. Also, I'll probably add some gorgonians in there, because they're absolutely beautiful. Sea fans, I'll probably add a couple sea fans because they're absolutely beautiful as well. So there's definitely some things I'm going to add in that 20-gallon long. It's going to be a showcase refugium. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plumb it right into my 65. I'm just going to keep the same return pump that I have, and I'm just going to bite off of that and just send a very low flow to that aquarium, probably somewhere around 100 gallons per hour or less, maybe 50 gallons an hour to that 20-gallon long. It's going to be a very low flow to that aquarium. I will have an additional power head in there for additional flow, but it'll be a low flow power head, low flow tank all the way around. More than likely, if I get around to it or not, I really am interested in adding a couple seahorses in there just for show, because they are absolutely beautiful and they do well in a low flow aquarium. And I feel like having the gorgonians and the macroalgae and the mangrove trees, those are definitely good things for the seahorses to latch onto. So I've definitely put that into consideration as well, because I definitely do want to add some seahorses. So the 65-gallon is making a full recovery here, and it is doing quite well, as you can see. I got the parameters back to where they need to be. I got my water changes back on schedule. The nuisance algae is almost gone. This section over here, that rock right there, is looking quite well. I'll give you a quick close-up. As you can see, a lot of that algae that was on there is pretty much all gone. I did have a rock of zoas back there. It's a nice sized rock fall. Mushrooms are spreading quite rapidly now. Mushrooms do spread quite quickly, especially if the levels are correct. They do like a little bit more. I've noticed over the years, if your nitrates and phosphates are a pinch higher than you would have in a SPS dominant aquarium, they tend to spread quicker, and the nutrients levels in this tank were a little bit higher for a little bit, and I think that was the reason why I've had an explosion in mushroom growth over the past month or so, about the past 2 months. As you can see, this SPS coral here, it's still alive, and it does seem to be growing some of its flesh back. So I do think it's going to make a recovery, and I'm actually quite ecstatic about that. So as you can see, the rest of the aquarium is doing better. The sand bed is starting to look better. I have a little bit of nuisance algae right there on the sand bed, as you can see. But besides that, it's doing well. The figure 8 coral is starting to make a recovery. As you can see, it's starting to close around that part of the flesh. That part over there is still showing some bone, but it is starting to, the skin is starting to grow back over it. So hopefully that will make a full recovery here. For the most part, everything else is doing quite well. The fish look really good. I couldn't be happier considering what it was looking like about a couple weeks ago when I made that video. Things have made a drastic change, and just goes to show you how quickly you can get your tank back on schedule if you're really focused on it and you're putting the time in. How quickly you can get things back stable anyways. Now it depends on how far things go south. This tank wasn't that far south, but it did definitely had some issues, and I definitely have gotten it back quite quickly, and I'm pretty surprised on how fast the aquarium bounced back. So I just wanted to talk about that, the changes I'm going to be making. T5s are definitely a big one. I'm definitely going to be adding T5s in here. I feel like that's going to be a huge benefit to the corals and adding a more fuller spectrum. Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. I want to show you down the sump underneath, and we're going to talk about some things down there too. So hold on. I'll pause the video real fast. Alright guys, so I'm back. You'll see that the sump light under here looks a little red. That's because I have it highlighted to showcase the aquarium. So the camera's set to maximize the look of the inside of the main display tank because of the blue lights and things like that. So the sump's going to come off, even though it's a crisp white under here, it's going to look a little redder. So as you can see, I'm still running the same protein skimmer, and I've considered, I definitely have to pull it out and clean it. As you can see, I mean, it just doing this to show the neglect. I mean, look at the stuff building up inside the skimmer. I really was neglecting it quite well. The tank was being neglected. I have a little bit of gook building up on the water there, which I have to still just get the tank back to where it needs to be. I mean, there's still a lot of work that has to be done. Just to, just in the past couple weeks, I've been maintaining the aquarium again, and things have started to look up. But this was completely filled with nuisance algae on the surface, cyano and stuff like that, and it has really came a long way since then. So I'm pretty happy about that. Over here, obviously everything's still stayed the same. I don't change up stuff that much, but like I said, I am definitely going to be doing a serious overhaul on this aquarium as far as it goes. I'll show you what I'm going to do here. You'll see this line coming up for the return pump. I'm just going to spice off of that, put a three-way in there, basically a T, and then I'm just going to put a valve on there just to reduce the flow, and then the other tank is going to sit on my side here, and that'll be it, and it's going to be a very low flow aquarium. And I'm also I've thought about changing out this light fixture for my macroalgae to something a little better to get more macroalgae growth out of it, but at the same time, I'm going to be having my showcase refugium over here in the corner, and when I get to setting that up, I'll definitely show you guys that. I am going to keep this refugium going because of how established it is down here, and I have a lot of pods and stuff down here, but I am going to take some of the macroalgae out of here. I am going to take some of the rock out of here and add it to that aquarium to definitely seed it, because I'm going to do a deep sand bed in that aquarium, a shallow, or a sugar fine sand, and I'm probably going to go with a 4-inch deep sand bed. I'm not going to go any deeper than that. I think when you start getting to that 6-7 inches, I think it's just crazy overkill. But I want to have a lot of life in there, so I want to definitely have a deep sand bed, about 4 inches deep. That's a lot deeper than I normally go. I normally only go with a 1 to 1.5 inch deep sand bed. I don't ever go any deeper than that. I think a lot of times if you go to deep sand bed, if it's not set up correctly, it can become a nutrient sink, and I don't care what anybody says. I know people will argue that fact, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinions, but in my opinion, even with good adequate flow, I still feel like over time, and I'm talking 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, when I set up an aquarium, I expect it to be there for a long time. I'm not thinking 1 to 2 years down the road. This aquarium's been up for a little over 2.5 years now, and I plan on keeping this one going for another 4 or 5. Maybe if I decide to upgrade, it might be a different story, but as of right now, I'm planning on this tank going for another 5 years at least, the bare minimum. So I just feel like, and if you don't have your flow dialed incorrectly, I mean, this could definitely be an issue, and your sand bed can become a nutrient sink. And this is one of the reasons why I like to stir my sand bed. Everybody has different opinions on that and different beliefs, and I've discussed this in other videos, so I'm not going to go on a long thing about that. People will say if you have adequate flow, blah blah blah, there's no need to touch your sand bed, and that is an ongoing discussion in the reef hobby. And I have discussed that before and left my opinions on other forums on the benefits of stirring your sand bed, so I'm not going to get into a whole long thing about that right now. Like I said, I find it very beneficial, and I wouldn't, I don't know what just happened, guys, hold on. So I'm not going to go into a long thing here, but that is one of the reasons why I only go with a 1 to 1.5 inch deep sand bed, because of that reason. Now with the 20 gallon that's going to have a deep sand bed in there, it's going to be a low flow tank, obviously, so that is, having a deep sand bed should be a concern. But the fact that it's going to be a refugium, there's not going to be fish in there, I'm not going to be feeding it, there should be a lot of pods and a lot of critters in there to keep that sand bed clean. And if need be, I will add, something, I don't know about astrine or sand stars or anything like that, sand shifting star or sand gobies or anything like that. I'm not going to add anything like that to it. But the amount of worms and stuff and spaghetti worms and other types of life in there should keep that sand bed clean, considering that, like I said, I'm not going to have fish in there. I'm not going to be feeding it. There shouldn't be any detritus building up in there. My main aquarium will be filtered through my filter socks way before it ever gets pushed over to that remote refugium. So it should be fine, and it'll also be a denitrification. Obviously a deep sand bed can be a denitrification. I'm not setting it up for that reason. I'm setting up a deep sand bed just to have a lot of life. If I have the 4-inch sugar fine deep sand bed in there, I can have more life growing within that sand bed, more surface area for beneficial bacteria to grow on, and for your aerobic and anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic and aerobic bacteria, one bacteria thrives with oxygen, the other one thrives in low oxygenated areas. So this is another reason why I want to do the deep sand bed. So I think it's going to be very beneficial, and I'm excited to document that and get that going for you guys. And we'll discuss deep sand beds and the benefits and the downsides to them, and other videos we'll talk about stirring sand beds, the benefits and the downsides to that, because there's an upside and downside to everything we do in this hobby, guys. And that's and that goes with anything in life. There's an upside and downside to everything. So you have to decide for yourself if it's beneficial or not. There's a lot of people that siphon their sand beds. That's a new thing. I see a lot of guys on forums talking about how they're vacuuming their sand bed. Which that's not a new theory or anything. A lot of people have been doing it, but it seems to be gaining popularity, we'll say, over the past year or so. Alright guys, so I just wanted to talk about the changes I'm going to be making with this aquarium here, and like I said, I'll walk you through everything that I'm going to be doing, and I'll show you everything as far as the T5 and the bulb selection and why I selected those bulbs. I'll talk about the deep sand bed, why I'm doing the deep sand bed. I'll talk about the negatives to a deep sand bed, positives. Same thing with the shallow sand bed, the positives, negatives, stirring the sand bed, positives, negatives. I'm going to talk about a lot of things, guys, in the coming months, and definitely excited to show you the decorative refugium. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Alright guys, this is Buddy signing out. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks again to all my subscribers. Thank you for showing the support to my channel. I appreciate it, guys. Alright, if you have any videos for me to check out, definitely leave me a link, and I'd love to see them. Alright, this is Buddy signing out. Happy reefing.